From August 1914 to November 1918, World War I raged across the globe and became known as the Great War. Many called it the war to end all wars. Historians believe that more than 14 million soldiers and civilians were killed in the Great War. This is the story of the 77th Infantry Division and a group of men that will forever be known for their bravery, honor, and sacrifice during a pivotal battle at the end of the Great War. The story of the Lost Battalion solidified the 77th Infantry Division's place in military history and began the decorated lineage of a military unit that lives on today, simply known as the Liberty Warriors.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun.
On April 6, 1917, the United States of America officially declared war on Germany. America quickly began building an expeditionary force that would exceed 2 million, and we had never fielded an army of this size before. The newspapers nicknamed the soldiers Doughboys. There are many theories where the name came from. Some say their uniform buttons looked like dough, or that the soldiers ate fried donuts, or that the cavalry soldiers used the name to describe the dust-covered infantrymen. There are many theories, but one thing is certain: the name stuck. Camp Upton, located in Yaphank, New York, was created as a training base for soldiers on their way to France. The recruits who arrived at Upton came from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, representing 25 or more national backgrounds and all walks of life. While at Camp Upton, the draftees trained in the use of grenades, machine guns, and professional boxers taught the men hand-to-hand combat. From these raw recruits came the core of the 77th Infantry Division, which was activated in August 1917. Among the soldiers training at Camp Upton was one individual who was already famous, and whose fame would grow after the war: Sergeant Irving Berlin. While at Camp Upton, Berlin wrote Yip Yip Yaphank, a military musical based on his life at the camp. The show was produced on Broadway, with Berlin's fellow soldiers filling the cast. From this show came one of Berlin's most famous songs, "Oh, How I Hate to Get Up in the Morning."
Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning.
The Great War produced military legends like Sergeant Alvin York and Flying Ace Eddie Rickenbacker. Included in this elite list was Harvard Law graduate and New York attorney Charles White Whittlesey, commander of the Lost Battalion. He was commissioned a major and assigned as the commander of the 1st Battalion, 308th Infantry Regiment, 77th Infantry Division. In August 1918, the Allies started taking the offensive against the Germans. On October 2nd, the 77th was advancing against the Germans near a town called Charlevoix in the Argonne Forest. The division battled all day to secure the high ground. During the battle, Whittlesey's men advanced against what appeared to be a retreating German force. American and French forces on the flanks were forced to move back as the Germans mounted a fierce counterattack. With Whittlesey's men enthusiastically advancing, thinking the Germans were retreating, they were unaware it was a trap. Soon, the 77th was surrounded by the Germans. What followed was one of the most savage and horrific experiences of the entire war. Whittlesey ordered his men to dig in. All communication with the other units was lost, and the battalion was completely cut off from supplies. German snipers, machine guns, and mortars rained down on the Lost Battalion. In addition, they began taking friendly mortar fire from the Americans. The battalion was out of food and almost out of ammunition. They tried to send supplies in, but the Germans quickly intercepted. After 4 days, the Germans offered surrender terms. The newspaper reported Whittlesey responded, "Go to hell." This was never confirmed by Whittlesey. Regardless, the request for surrender was declined. Eventually, the relief force punched through the German lines and reached the Lost Battalion. They were stunned at what they found. Out of 600 men, 107 were killed. Most of the survivors were badly wounded. 190 men were able to walk out on their own. Nearly every man in the entire battalion was wounded to some degree. The entire unit was cited for uncommon valor, and Whittlesey was promoted to lieutenant colonel and awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. On Armistice Day, November 11, 1921, Whittlesey served as a pallbearer for the unknown soldier being laid in the new tomb in Arlington National Cemetery. After the war, news of the story of the Lost Battalion traveled across the country, and members of the Lost Battalion were celebrated in their towns as war heroes. One hero, named Cherami, was arguably the most famous and beloved of the entire war. On his last mission, October 4th, 1918, the carrier pigeon was shot through the breast and leg by enemy fire, but still managed to return to his loft with a message capsule dangling from the wounded leg. The message Cherami carried was from Major Charles Whittlesey of the Lost Battalion.